Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and you are watching Poland Daily Culture. Since the times of epidemic recalls in us many metaphysical questions, we will talk today about the greatest Polish philosophers of 20th century. With me in the studio is Marek Kądzielski, former student of Professor Bogusław Wolniewicz and a Polish philosopher. Thank you for having the courage to be with us.
Hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to your program.
Fever, sore throat, problem with breathing?
Fortunately nothing like this, but it's worthwhile remembering that last plague in Europe resulted in a very outstanding literary output, which is Decameron by Boccaccio, so we should rather think in these categories that we can bring something fruitful to this world thanks to epidemic. But still it is a cause to think in metaphysical in the times of plague.
We're talking about the greatest philosophers of 20th century. We categorized Henryk Elzenberg, Władysław Tatarkiewicz, Bogusław Wolniewicz, Kotarbiński, and right now we are talking about Stanisław Lem, who is known for many as a writer, as a great science fiction writer, but we consider him as well as a philosopher. And right now, let's move to Stanisław Lem's books, which show us the most his philosophical thoughts. And I know also that there was at the Warsaw University was written a PhD work about comparing Stanisław Lem to Lucretius by right now Professor Paweł Okołowski. And I know you have his books here with us in the studio.
This is the book by
Let's show
my
it to
friend
the people.
Paweł Okołowski, who is the follower of Bogusław Wolniewicz. This is the book entitled Matter in Values. This is the book that claims that the philosophy of Stanisław Lem is a continuation of Lucretius' philosophy from ancient Greek. It is, in my opinion, absolutely the best analysis of Lem's philosophical thought. And it's worthwhile reading. Maybe it's not very easy to read, but it discusses the core problems in Lem's philosophical output. But again, why should Lem be considered as a philosopher? As we can see, he always wrote some philosophical essays, like I mentioned the dialogues, Summa Technologiae, also some considerations about literature, which is called Fantastics and Futurology. It's worthwhile noticing that in that time, this kind of literary output was really science fiction. Today we have the fiction that is, so it was the fiction that was based on science. Today we have the fiction that is based on magic, which produces a different outlook.
And that's called fantasy.
That's called fantasy. It's very interesting, it's nice, but it tells very little about the world. It tells a little bit more about anthropology, probably. But definitely we should focus also on some late essays of Stanisław Lem. First of all, I have to mention that he was very skillful as far as the language is concerned. He should be compared, in my opinion, with Stanisław Ignacy Witkacy, who was also a philosophical writer. I mean, he was a writer and a philosopher, and a photographer and a painter, and another outstanding
Let me interrupt
figure.
here, because Witkacy is another huge story. And check out his paintings, check out his photography, which is amazing, and of course his books. It's a part of a genius of his kind, and I really, really strongly recommend you to see who Stanisław Ignacy Witkiewicz, and otherwise Witkacy, was. But let's go back to Lem.
Yes, but I'm mentioning Witkiewicz because only Witkiewicz and then Lem plays with the language in a very special way. They produce many neologisms that are acceptable on the ground of Polish literature, which is really unique. And they have their style. There is something in common they share. Also, Lem discusses in some of his interviews the phenomenon of Witkiewicz. He says that Witkiewicz had everything to be a great writer. He was intelligent, he spoke 5 languages, he was educated, but he has enormous experience gained throughout his life, and the same may be said about Stanisław Lem. But if we focus about his late essays, he invited something very interesting. When he felt that there was not much time left to him, he decided to write very compound essays in form of prefaces to non-existing books or summaries of non-existing books, where he analyzed some phenomena in the world. One of them is dedicated to analysis of the Holocaust, which is very important in my opinion, that is very little discussed, that was never discussed in Germany. And in this analysis, Lem claims and explains how it happened that Germans chose Jews for the Holocaust, because there is no natural explanation to this phenomenon. Again, if you base only on natural reasons, it was obvious that these were not the Jews that could provide Germany with what they desired, their Lebensraum, the place to live. It was rather at the expense of Slavic nations, which they did. But again, this does not explain the phenomenon of the Holocaust. And Lem says Jews were selected by Germans because they were Jews, meaning they were selected by Germans because they are considered the nation chosen by God. And this puts, of course, deeply metaphysical notions to explanation of history in the 20th century, and emphasizes that it was a kind of struggle from the part of Germany to create a completely different world that rejects the roots of our civilization, one of which is inherited from Old Testament and from Jewish metaphysics. And by eliminating Jews, they wanted to eliminate the traces of God on this world.
Those are very strong words, but important, and especially noticing Stanisław Lem. If you consider him only as a science fiction writer, you're probably not wrong. He was a very strong mind, worth considering, and I hope he will influence another generations of great thinkers. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.